Hello and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. And I have on today a guest I'm super excited to speak to because there's so much data and information to discuss. And I'm going to speak to German aid to Ukraine about, wait for it, German aid to Ukraine. So German aid to Ukraine is a Twitter chap behind a Twitter handle or X handle that reports on German aid to Ukraine and discusses all elements of that. Well worth following on Twitter. So please, take time to go and click on follow for him. Thank you so much for joining us or joining me. Do you want to just give a little bit of an introduction as to who you are and what it is that you concern yourself with?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for letting me here. I'm very excited, also a bit nervous. But yeah, I'm basically just a guy from Eastern Germany who tracks and reports on German aid to Ukraine in his spare time. And I created this project last year due to the sometimes very bad reporting on German aid. And I followed Urux and Greg Mente at the time, who is a Swiss politician who I actually made regular updates with nice infographics on Twitter. But both projects missed the detail and a lot of aid was not covered. So yeah, that's why I created this project.
So is that Oryx you were saying that some of that detail
Yes.
was missing? Yeah. So
Yes.
and obviously Oryx now is still, well, the website still functions. I think Jakub Janowski still does some work there,
Yes.
but Oryx himself has stopped doing it and is moving to war spotting and stuff like that. But yeah, so interesting stuff. Well, you have your Twitter handle and also, and I can't believe I've only just discovered this, mate, but you've got a website and also a blog that you've just started, which is in English, and it gives blog details, articles about the different aid packages, I presume, and information around that, as well as this insanely cool website detailing military support from Germany. Do you want to? And I know we haven't got this down as questions, but we'll come back to this if you don't mind. We will come back to that once we get into the details of some of the packages. I guess
sure.
First of all, do you want to just talk us through? Because my goodness, it's been an evolution in terms of German aid. Do you want to just talk us through what your understanding of German aid has been going from the beginning, where that Germany was ridiculed for giving 5,000 helmets, to the point now where some people are saying they've overtaken, at least in recent times, overtaken the US to be the biggest donor, but certainly the second biggest donor of military aid to Ukraine. What explains this evolution?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say Germany had a slow start. I would say we have, like, compared to what we're doing right now, a weak start. Just like you said, most of the people think that Germany started with helmets, but that's actually not that true. Like the 5,000 helmets we have delivered back then, they were actually pledged in late January before the start of the full-scale invasion. The first delivery of weapons, or the first delivery of Germany to Ukraine after the start of the full-scale invasion were actually weapons, and we pledged on the 26th of February, when I remember right, which is 2 days after the start, we pledged 1,000 Panzerfaust 3 and 500 Stinger manpads, and we got visual confirmation of them in March. So yeah, it was a weak start, but we improved a lot. And for heavy weapons, a lot of people think that Germany was extremely slow, and I'm not saying we couldn't act faster. Everyone could have acted faster. I mean, everyone wasted so much valuable time, when we are honest. But Germany, for example, pledged and delivered the first Western-made MRAD with Iris TSLM. And together with the US, we pledged the first Western-made IFVs and delivered even our Marders before the US delivered their Bradleys. So yeah, it's
So let's actually, it's probably a good time then to talk those Iris Ts. So you said that you were delivering some of these Iris Ts here. These are, just to let people know in case they don't know, those are air defense systems. There's a medium range air defense system which ends in the M, SLM, and then the short range system, the SLS. So, but not to talk about them in detail yet, but you're saying that Germany pledged those things quite early on, and that was that lost, I guess, in the media and perhaps overlooked by the US provision of quite a lot of equipment.
I'm not sure if it was overlooked by someone. I think it's not valued enough. Germany has pledged a lot of air defense and is probably in terms of air defense, Germany is like the biggest provider to Ukraine overall. Like we have pledged so many IRIS-T, SLM, and SLS systems that we have delivers lined up to the year 2025 already, with consistent flow of air defense systems.
Wow.
We have delivered 2 Patriot systems, one more than the US. We have delivered 2 extra launchers for the Patriot system.
Yeah, so on the screen at the moment, you've got the one, but then you literally just heard in the last 24 hours that another one has gone over, which you talked about yourself on Twitter. So yeah,
Yes.
two systems and 2 extra launches. Interesting.
Yes,
and of course,
yes.
Germany is together, because I reported on this earlier. You are in a coalition with France and the US for air defense provision. So that fits in line with your coalition situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when was it? In November that the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense announced a new coalition of air defense. And yeah, they had the meeting of this coalition yesterday.
Yeah.
No, 2 days ago. 2 days ago it started, and yesterday it was finished. And they basically concluded that Germany is taking over the training, the US is taking over the systems, which basically also means that the US will probably deliver way more air defense systems like Patriots in the near future. And France is taking over I believe it was over the organization.
Yeah, and command. I couldn't tell whether command was the organization or the command centers. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but that's integrated in the systems.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, we've heard, just to go off piste a little bit here, we have heard that the Ukrainians have received, I think, the first ever one in the world. I think it's even like the Americans basically, I think, gave the Ukrainians this system that integrates all air defenses, if I'm correct in saying, like the central control system that you can plug in all particularly the NATO air defense systems, but also they've adapted the old Soviet era ones to be able to plug them into it. And I presume that every new IRIS-T system or IRIS or Patriot system is just added to the control, this network that is just hopefully better than what Russia have on the other side of things.
I'm actually not that sure what you're talking about with all this integrated stuff. But with Frankensam, if you're talking about Frankensam, I'm actually not that familiar with this procedure.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Actually, I was talking about something called IAMBDS or something. It was this is one that joins up all of the. So what happens if you get an aircraft or more likely a missile or some kind of threat in the sky, then it can, with all your radars are all being joined up together, the central command system can work out what the threat is and what the best way of taking it out is. And so you can have all these different systems plugged into that, and you can work out which system to use on which threat. And it's just the way that NATO has been able to help Ukraine in a really, really positive way. But that's great that Germany is playing a major role in air defense, because of course Zelensky has said, or is well known, that it is all about air defense because it's about protecting the cities and then hopefully protecting the front as well. Do you know at all where any of these systems go at all, or is that just kept really quiet?
I mean, it's understandable that they don't want to provide more info than actually needed in the public. But we know that the German delivered Patriot system at least is most of the time in Kiev. We know, and it got recently actually confirmed by a spokesperson of the Ukrainian Air Force, that the German delivered Patriot system was actually at the front line for a couple of days at the Bryansk region, where Russia, when was that, in March or in May? I'm always confusing these months. I believe it was in May, right? When we shot down 2 fighter jets and 3 helicopters that day in Russia. And the German delivered Patriot system was used for that. And I mean, we know it for a long time due to video footage the Ukrainians published themselves. But we recently got confirmation of that. And with the Iris-T systems, we know that at least two of the 3 delivered so far are in Kiev also. And we know a couple of Gepards are in Kiev, but yeah, where the rest is delivered, it's nothing is confirmed. At least for the Gepards, we know that most of them, if not all of them, are not used for their intended role. They're just protecting critical infrastructure, which is understandable, but a bit sad. But
Well,
yeah,
we saw some footage. I saw some footage this morning of them operating. I think it was Gepard, but actually, to be honest, you couldn't tell because it was dark. But around Odessa, so Odessa seems to be a place
yeah,
where the Ukrainians are having a lot of trouble in repelling all the Shaheeds and missiles that are sent towards the infrastructure there. So there's a big need.
yeah. Odessa is also confirmed, and the second Patriot battery. I mean, there are rumors it's in Odessa. The second
Really?
delivered, there are rumors,
Yeah.
but no visual confirmation of that.
Yeah, because what happened is there's a Su-24, anyway, a Su plane. I think it was Su-24 that shot down in the northern Black Sea area, and then apparently, one of the theories was that was a Patriot, and then the Russians have stopped flying so much and so close to the Odessa region precisely because supposedly there's a Patriot system there.
Yeah,
But
I
as
heard
you
that.
say, not sure. Who knows?
Yeah, but it would make sense, right? Like we got confirmation of the delivery yesterday, or I got confirmation yesterday from the German Luftwaffe, and with all the details lined up now, it's we can be sure it's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've long been saying it would be fantastic if you could get a Patriot because there are 5 being bought off Raytheon, I believe. John Ridge was saying yesterday or the other day that I think it was John Ridge was saying that they need 14 plus Patriots to really make sure that Ukraine can defend all its critical infrastructure and then start pushing maybe their older air defense systems like the S-300s closer to the front line. Because yes, it's all about, they need to protect inside Ukraine, but you also need to protect the front lines so that you can have successful maneuvers on the front line without Russian helicopters and aircraft hitting you with bombs on the front line. So I can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you see the strategic behind Russia, right? Attacking the cities over and over again, day after day. It just makes sure that Ukraine doesn't use its modern air defense systems at the front line, where they are very effective or where they would play a vital role. They need to use it to protect the cities. It's strategic.
Yeah, I just had a light bulb moment, mate. I mean, I kind of realized that, but no, for sure. Like sometimes I go, why have they sent another 2 drones and like 3 missiles here? And of course, and I say this about Ukraine, but I haven't applied it to Russia. So with Ukraine, it's the same thing. They keep sending these random drones off into like the different areas of Russia. It's such a huge country, and that forces Russia to deploy their air defense systems within Russia. But of course, the Russians are doing exactly the same, even more so to Ukraine, where they're just sending off stuff and they don't really care that it does or doesn't blow up things inside Ukraine. It keeps the Ukraine's best air defense systems off the front line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Like when we at the front line have 2 more Patriot systems or a couple of Iris-T ones or NASAMS and every system, and for the pushes of armored vehicles, for example, when 1 or 2 Gepards would drive with them. Yeah, all these kind of video footage we see basically daily on a regular basis. with FPV drones flying into tanks, flying into, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it could be prevented like for 100%, but it would have a huge impact if Russia doesn't would attack Ukrainian cities that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, all of those air defense systems would be on the front line, and all those Gepards, as you say, would be protecting from drones. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. So going back to the original question, so Germany has really picked up, though. Okay, so it's a myth that they were just delivering 5,000 helmets at the beginning, but as you say, perhaps a weaker start than where they are at the moment. What do you think? What do you think sort of inspired the change for Germany? Because I think I look at Olaf Scholz and his rhetoric at the moment is very strong, and he's very much talking about how this is an existential threat to Germany and to the EU and to our way of life. And so he seems to have had, in my book, I've been saying to my viewers that he's had this light bulb moment himself. Is that what's underwriting this change of more and more equipment going?
I mean, you could argue like this, but
Mm.
I don't think that he really changed a lot. I mean, maybe a bit, but not a lot. I think that Germany has changed. For example, in terms of dependencies on Russia. Yeah. And as a result, he just has a lot of more freedom to talk and act.
Right.
Um, and that's my understanding of the situation. Because
So
he still takes, yeah, sorry.
So, sorry, just to understand what you're saying. So, and I think that this makes loads of sense. So, when Germany was dependent more on Russia for, say, hydrocarbons, oil and gas, he couldn't speak out so much against Russia. But since you've had this massive transformation in Germany in terms of your dependency on Russia, he's then been able to be more free with what he says.
Yeah, I think that plays a big role because when you just look at him, like really nothing has changed a lot. He still takes a lot of time to make decisions, for example, with
Mm.
Taurus, for example, with the Leopards and stuff like this. And he still orientates himself on the US with Biden as a leader. And that was the case from the beginning of the war, and it's still the case. So I don't think that he really changed. I think Germany has changed.
Interesting. And talking to that, uh, you say Germany has changed. What about the public? Because we hear about the worrying stories of Russia being involved in politics across Europe, stoking particularly the far right, and in Germany that's the AfD. You say you're from Eastern Germany, where the AfD have a big hold.
Yeah.
Is that a challenge for Germany? Is that blown out of proportion by media, or is that genuinely a big challenge? Do you think that Germany's support of Ukraine will be politically challenged at all?
I mean, we have to take into account that the vast majority of Germans are still in favor of arms deliveries to Ukraine. We always have to make sure that we always remind that most of the German wants arms deliveries to Ukraine. Most of the Germans want to continue this. Most of the Germans wants to help Ukraine to liberate their land from the Russian invaders. They want this. There's a big minority with the left ones and the right ones in Germany. Not going to argue about that, especially in Eastern Germany. That's true. But they're not the majority. We had a recent poll like 2-3 weeks ago, I believe, and with very recent figures about all this kind of stuff, like what do you want to allow Ukraine with our aid to do, and just to hold position, to liberate more land and stuff like this. And people are in favor of Ukraine liberating their land and more arms deliveries to Ukraine.
That's really good news, actually. That's fantastic. So, I mean, it. You've mentioned that Olaf Scholz aligns himself with Biden, and then you had that whole situation where he didn't want to give Leopard tanks until Biden had secured or had offered Abrams tanks. Is that what's going on with Taurus somehow? I mean, what's the explanation behind the Taurus? And is that correct about the Leopards? Was he, did he just want America to take the lead?
With the Leopards first,
Yeah.
month after Scholz agreed to send the Leopards to Ukraine, and Biden agreed to deliver the Abrams to Ukraine. Month later, Scholz said at a public discussion that he wanted to make sure that Biden is sending Abrams, and he is the reason. He didn't use these words. Obviously, he didn't, because of, like, he's a politician. But that was the sense behind his meaning. He didn't want to go forward until the US also does it, and that's the same with the Taurus um, for my way of thinking. I mean, he gives this kind of explanation and this kind of explanation, this reason and this excuse and stuff like this, but most of it is irrelevant, or the only thing which I always see is that he says we need another country to deliver the same capacities as we do with Scalp AG and with Storm Shadow, for example. They have delivered a system which doesn't has a range of the Taurus. Yeah, the Taurus has an official range of 500 kilometers and an official range, unofficial range of 700 kilometers, or about 700. And nobody has delivered that yet. And of course, you could say that's an excuse, because you could also use Storm Shadow to attack on Russian territory. Of course, you can, and they don't. Yeah, but every argument, the only thing which makes sense in my head is that Scholz waits for Biden to send long-range cruise missiles, and then we will see long-range Taurus. At least that's what I hope.
Well, do you know what? So, although Scholz got a hell of a lot of international criticism for not sending the Leopards until the Abrams, when you take the long view of it, actually, that's pretty good politicking there. I think Scholz did a good job, which is to say, no, I won't send the Leopards. No, I won't send the Leopards. We've got to send the Abrams. Okay, you're sending Abrams, because then that opens the door. For now, the US have sent Abrams, and that gives the US to send further Abrams going forward. And they've got 6,000 of those bad boys. And actually, Scholz is the one that got that to happen. Now, we can criticize Scholz for not giving Leopards soon enough, or we can congratulate Scholz for getting Abrams on the table. And actually, I think, yeah, it would have been great to get Leopard sooner, but getting Abrams on the table at all, I think, is a really good thing. But it's interesting about Taurus. So you don't think he would give Taurus without the US giving a cruise missile, not ATACMS, but a cruise missile?
Yeah, long-range cruise missiles. And without that, I don't see it. I really don't see it. Because the Ukrainians asked, like, over half a year ago, officially, and they asked unofficially prior to that. And we have taken so much time, so much consideration. And you see that, for example, 2 days ago, Roderich Kiesewetter, who's a politician in the opposition party,
the strong left winger.
No, he's in a strong.
I thought that's that woman. Sorry, I forget her name.
Wagenknecht.
Yes, her.
Yeah. No, he actually had an interview with NTV, which is a news organization here in Germany, and he said that the German government answered to a request from him that since May this year they haven't had done a legal investigation into providing Taurus to Ukraine at all. Like, there's all these kind of reasons or excuses and stuff like this all comes down to the US not delivering. And until the US doesn't do it, I don't see Scholz doing anything about Taurus to Ukraine.
And that's a real shame, because I don't think the US are going to be releasing long-range cruise missiles anytime soon. Yeah,
that's a bummer.
Yeah, it is indeed. So Germany seemed to consistently provide small or smaller but meaningful assistance packages, including sort of Zetros trucks and HX-81s and whatnot. You've listed these, of course. If you come further down into, well, you've got multiple launch rocket systems. That's 5. The Mars 2 are similar to the HIMARS. You've got Panzer howitzers, the self-propelled guns, and they're really useful. Leopard tanks, main battle tanks. These Barnvarm, which are the articulated amphibious vehicles. But then we get down to these kind of technical vehicles and equipment, and actually Germany have provided 85 HX-81, 232 Zetros. So these are the HX-81. Like, if you're going to do war, you're going to need stuff like this, right? If you're going to do war, you're going to need big trucks to deliver ammunition and equipment. How important is this, and are Germany taking a lead in kind of technical vehicles here?
I mean, first of all, I wouldn't call these deliveries packages. We announce packages worth hundreds of millions to billions on a regular basis, but the arms deliveries, just like you said, they happen mostly every week on a much smaller scale. And this is like a continued flow of arms, not some package we deliver sometimes. And I just think that Germany actually supplies everything which Ukraine wants and needs, apart from cruise missiles. From ammunition to main battle tanks, everything is being delivered on a regular basis. And for logistics, yeah, I mean, I'm not that sure how much logistical stuff other countries are delivering to Ukraine. We just know that Germany does it every week. And I mean, we probably all know these important quotes from important people of war, like Eisenhower, for example, and they all say the same: logistics is one of the most important factors in a war. And I'm not saying logistics wins war by themselves, but it plays a very, very vital role. And therefore, I'm very happy that Germany delivers logistical trucks and tank transporters, like you just pointed out, nearly every week.
It's just incredible, actually. When the more we look into what Germany has done, the more impressive I think Germany. I've been a big fan of congratulating Scholz and Germany. I mean, you can argue whether Scholz is doing it or whether it's a German defense Ministry of Defense that's doing this. But if you look at the list here, you got 6 8x6 load handling systems, 40 8x8 load handling systems, 15 Panzer II armored recovery vehicles, 2 Panzer III ones, but both of those have been destroyed. So the red number denotes, if they've been lost, as according to Oryx. 13 bridge laying Biber, I presume that's how you pronounce it. 5 bridges, heavy and medium bridge systems, 85 HX-81s, 34 load handling trucks, 15 tons, lift trucks, 232 Mercedes-Benz Zetros, mine plows, Oshkosh, Pioneer Panzer, roll-off containers, 80 semi-trailers. It's just incredibly wide-ranging and super useful. Just Germany really does seem to be impressively supporting Ukraine. And sorry, that's just me giving credit to where I think credit is due.
Yeah, very nice to hear, actually.
Well, it's quite funny because at the beginning of the war, I would on occasion say, "Do you know what? Germany's done some awesome stuff here. Congratulations!" And I'd get German people saying, "Thank you for saying that," because no one else is saying it. Like in the international media, Germany were getting quite a lot of hassle, as I said, and as you said, it was a bit mythological because in reality they were doing things. Have you found that Germany has been receiving the raw end of the deal from the media?
I mean, that was from the beginning, and it will probably never end. Yeah, because like I'm not saying they are all like with bad intention towards Germany. Just because Germany takes that leading role, and then we have to act accordingly, right? For example, with Taurus, I can understand why he wants that Ukraine gets long-range missiles also from the US, because the US can basically just send way more than we could do.
Yeah.
But when we take a leading role, for my point of view, we have to act accordingly, which means that Germany has to lead and deliver Taurus, for example, when he doesn't see, or when He don't think that Biden will agree to send long-range cruise missiles from the US, and that's basically the reason, or I see why media and people on social media and stuff like this are saying that Germany is not doing enough or is waiting too long, dragging their feet, however you want to call it, because we want to take that leading role, but we not every time act that way.
And it's interesting because Schultz has said the rhetoric this week is like he's literally very explicitly said in the times when other nations are going to step back, and he's talking about Ukraine, you know, Germany needs to step forward. So he's saying the right things with regard to delivering or giving tourists, but unfortunately, obviously not yet. Here you've got the Skynex noted down. So that's one of these new systems from, I think, Rheinmetall, isn't it?
Yes.
And they've got prototypes, I think, over there, sort of being used. Do you know anything about those?
Well, there's a big mystery going on because with Skynex, there were statements back and forth about the delivery of these systems. The CEO of Rheinmetall, Pappberger, for example, stated many months ago that the systems which are, yes, these are the Skynex systems, and for Ukraine, they're mounted on HX trucks.
Right.
So they are more mobile.
Mounted on these things.
Not explicitly on these things, but the one you saw in the background on the Skynex picture.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, on these kind of things. The problem is we had statements, yeah, we have delivered this, and then we had statements, no, that was actually not true. And Solutiony, for example, said recently that Germany has delivered both systems, but it's not confirmed. Like neither Rheinmetall wants to confirm the delivery, nor the German government, nor we've seen images of this kind of systems in Ukraine. So maybe they're operated in Ukraine since over half a year now. Maybe they are not there. But in any case, Rheinmetall pledged to deliver both systems until the end of the year. So in any case, if they hold their word, in less than 2 weeks, they're in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it could be one of those things where Rheinmetall, because it's such a new bit of kit and it's prototype, they don't want to give stuff away. Whereas Ukraine is like, yeah, we've got it, it's awesome. Yeah, what a great place to test equipment out. If you're in the arms industry, then there's no better test bed than an actual war. And goodness me, they'll have a lot of use for the Skynex system, which is throwing up lead into the air at incredible rates to, you know, take things out. I think this is probably a good time to start talking about Rheinmetall, because Rheinmetall are everywhere. When you're looking at news to do with aid to Ukraine, when you're talking about repair facilities and production facilities and working with Ukraine and investing in Ukraine, or just producing stuff for Ukraine, Rheinmetall is just mentioned everywhere. Although they're not the biggest arms manufacturer in the world, like BAE Systems, I think would kind of dwarf them. I was listening to someone saying they actually are involved in lots of different sectors, Rheinmetall, and it's not just arms. Could you talk at all? I don't know how much you know about Rheinmetall, but just give the viewers a little bit of knowledge about what part they're playing.
Yeah. So they're not the biggest arms company in the world. That's true. I think the US ones are taking the lead by far. But Rheinmetall is the largest German arms manufacturer and one of the top 100 in the world. And it's therefore only logical that Rheinmetall has one of the largest capacities in Ukraine, in Europe, and is involved as such. But I also think that financial interests will certainly play a role here. What Rheinmetall makes special in terms of Ukraine is the production of artillery ammunition. Many people probably think it's air defense or armored vehicles. But Rheinmetall is not playing a leading role in Ukraine when it comes to armored vehicles or air defense. It's artillery ammunition. They want to produce around 700,000 shells of artillery ammunition next year, which is really, really great. They recently increased their forecast for 2024 from 600,000 to 700,000 shells. And this is like 120 caliber to 155 caliber. Um, and 100 or hundreds of thousands of shells have already been earmarked for Ukraine in the next year. So it's really really great. And nevertheless, Rheinmetall does also have a say in armored vehicles such as the Marder, for example, or in air defense with the Skynex. And when I remember right, Rheinmetall was also the first Western company, just like you said, to open a factory for maintenance and production of Western-made vehicles inside of Ukraine during the war times. So yeah, they are very, very important and probably one of the most important partners of Ukraine in general.
It's I think we have seen this move by Ukraine, and I think it's been born out of necessity from several different directions. But we've seen Ukraine appeal to international partners economically rather than morally. So the moral arguments, I think, have been made. And if, for example, in Congress in the US, there's no point saying, look, Russia are the bad guys and Ukraine are the good guys, because that argument's been made and it's still not worked on getting things working in Congress. So now we've started to see, and this should have happened so much earlier. I think the messaging on the war has been all wrong, but it should be the moral arguments along with the economic and the political and the geopolitical and the military strategic arguments need to be all placed together, and to say, look, we can get you jobs in Germany. We can get you jobs in the US. We can get tax dollars and tax euros coming in by supporting Ukraine. This military aid, you know, as they've said recently, 90% of the US money for military aid stays in the US. Is this something that Paprika has stated? Is this something that you hear in Germany at all? I mean, do you need to make those arguments?
I really don't hear that kind of arguments in Germany, when I'm honest. Like with the jobs, for example, just like you said it.
Yeah.
I've never really, or I don't remember it, but right now I don't remember like hearing the statement at all. I know that the most of the German aid is also used in Germany and not the US. It's not 90%,
Interesting.
not that high. For example, yesterday there was an update, and we know that Germany has delivered or used, I believe it was 28.7 or 20, no, it was 27.8 that way, 27.8 billion euros in bilateral aid to Ukraine alone since the beginning of the start. And for example, of these 27.8 billion, there's just, I believe it was 7 or 8 billion in social benefits for Ukrainian refugees inside of Germany. This kind of stuff. So there's a lot of money gets used in Germany, but it gets used for Ukraine, and that's the most important part.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, when you are trying to convince, you know, people who are being very, very difficult politically speaking, then appealing to money and economics, you know, is going to have a lot more purchase, I think, than some of the other arguments, unfortunately. In talking about German politics, it's been quite surprising to me, at least, that you've had really strong rhetoric against Russia and also in favor of militarization in terms of providing military aid to Ukraine and making sure that Ukraine is militarily, you know, able to defend itself. From people like Annalena Baerbock, who is your deputy prime minister, is it? I'm not sure the term.
Foreign minister.
She's a foreign minister. Sorry.
Habeck is a vice chancellor.
That's true. That's true. Sorry, my fault. So she's your
No worries.
foreign minister, but she's a member of the Green Party, and so traditionally you would associate possibly Greens with sort of CND and, you know, much more, you know, Stop the War Coalition and things like that. But actually, the Greens appear to, even certainly with Annalena Baerbock in Germany, appear to be very strongly in support of Ukraine. Is that a surprise? Should I be surprised about that?
I think, first of all, you're right. Absolutely. Like 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, something like this would not be possible, or most of the people wouldn't see that coming. With the Greens right now, I think they have very developed very good under the leadership of Baerbock and Habeck, who's Germany's vice chancellor. And Habeck, for example, was already in favor of arms deliveries to Ukraine at the beginning of 2021. And he also visited Ukraine back then. And he did a lot of work in his party to put people in the position to see that this is necessary with Russia already in 2021. But he was very much alone with this way of thinking. And he did publicly promote it and got a lot of shame for that. And but yeah, I think that's the reason for the policies that the Greens are currently pursuing.
Interesting. So, obviously, it really helps when you've got support across different political parties. I know that's a coalition government, so it's going to be slightly different. I mean, the good thing about the UK is that we're likely to see a change in government next year. In terms of the Conservative Party, almost certainly going to lose the election to the Labour Party. But what we know is that the Labour Party will be just as strong on Ukraine as the Conservative Party, and that gives you a really good sense of, calmness in terms of not having to worry, politically speaking, about the UK continuing to support Ukraine. Whereas you look at the US and you think, well, if the Republicans got in charge, what would happen with NATO if Trump was a president? Would they try and pull out of NATO? Would they stop giving aid to Ukraine? And that then becomes a real, you can't rely on, say, the US, even though they've said we're in it for as long as it takes, and they've slightly changed that now for as long as it's possible, as what Biden said yesterday, which is a real issue as far as I'm concerned. Whereas I like it in the UK, where there's not an issue if there's a change in government. If there's a change, how long's your government left to run?
I believe it was 2025.
And so, that's pretty good. So that's a couple of years anyway, and that gives you a good bit of stability. And is there general consensus? I know AfD maybe not so much, and I don't know about Die Linke, but in the main political parties, is there broad support for Ukraine?
Yeah. So basically, just to tell you, like Die Linke is gone. Like the left
Right.
party is gone now, and there will be a new party in the next year under the leadership of Wagenknecht,
Yes.
which is basically the same, maybe a bit stronger. Who knows? In terms of Ukraine aid, both the right wing and the left wing parties, the AfD and the Linke, or then the new Wagenknecht party, they made sure where they stand. Like they don't support Ukraine. Yeah, that's Wagenknecht. They don't support Ukraine. They want to stop the aid to Ukraine. They want to normalize the relations with Russia. With the other parties, like the government parties, the SPD, the Greens, and the FDP, you don't see any issues at all. They're in favor of Ukraine aid. And also the CDU, the biggest opposition party, which had leadership in Germany for many, many years under Merkel, they're also in terms of Ukraine in favor of more aid, and they want to do more. Of course, you always have to think about they're the opposition party, how much of the public statements is just lobbying work. Yeah, but they won't let Ukraine down. So I'm very sure, even if the government changed, it will not be the Linke, it will not be the AfD. If it's changed, then it's the CDU, and they're still in favor of Ukraine aid. So I think in terms of Germany and the German government changes in the future, nobody has to worry at all.
And sort of going back, sorry to flip back to Rheinmetall again. So Rheinmetall have been, or at least declare, well, no, not just declaring, they have built, or at least provided, repair centers for Ukrainian tanks, particularly the Leopard tanks. Is that pretty significant? Are they? How do you see that as being important or not? Being able to repair the tanks, and what are the issues with having to take the tanks out of out of Ukraine and bring them to places like Poland and Germany? And are Rheinmetall building repair centers in Ukraine?
Yeah, just Rheinmetall or other companies?
I guess you could expand that just in general, but Yeah.
I mean, Rheinmetall, just like I said, they just opened a factory inside of Ukraine near Kiev for the maintenance of
Right.
these
Cool.
vehicles, and they also want to rent factories to produce systems like the Fuchs, for example, in
Yeah. That's brilliant.
Ukraine. Yeah. If you want to say something, go ahead, please.
Well, yeah, I was just sorry. I go off and on these things pop into my head, but I was listening to some people talk about that. I think CJ and John Ridge on Andrew Perpetua's live
Yeah.
stream sometime recently talk about the production capacity of these factories, and that actually they're hoping to produce quite a lot of these. What's the sort of time frame of being able to produce stuff indigenously inside Ukraine to help Ukraine? Do you have any idea of that?
Yeah, Papega recently spoke about that. I mean, it's just a prediction, so nothing is
Yeah,
like 100% safe. But when I remember right, I don't have it in front of me, but when I
yeah,
remember right, he said that they expect conclusion of contracts for the production of Lynx infantry fighting vehicles and Fuchs armored personnel carriers. I believe until the beginning of 2024. So very early. I personally
yeah.
didn't expect that. And um, and he said that basically within this year, I'm not entirely sure. Sorry, someone is calling me. And I'm not very sure about how long it would take until they actually produce these systems in Ukraine. But he said something between like 6, 7 months or 12, 13 months.
Yeah, that was right. I remember that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. And when I remember right, he said that they're actually manufacturing right now Lynx infantry fighting vehicles for Ukraine, either in Hungary or in Germany. I believe it's either Germany, not Hungary, but yeah, I believe he said they're
I
right
think
now
you're right.
manufacturing.
They do have. That's where they presently make them, is in Hungary, I think.
Yeah,
But
they
yeah,
also made some in Germany. That's why they can produce them in Germany also. I believe he said they are currently producing 10 of them. I believe it was 10 for Ukraine. And they also already received signals from the German government to allow the export to Ukraine. So that's a great
that's
deal and
brilliant.
great
That's
news.
brilliant.
Yeah.
I, I
And
I
yeah.
remember them talking about how the Fuchs factory was basically uploaded from Germany and moved to Morocco or somewhere like that, and so they don't presently make them. So I think they'll be having to start that production, those production facilities essentially from scratch. But I may be incorrect in my memory there.
I
But
actually don't know that.
yeah, so I mean, this is all good news, and again, this is mainly stuff that seems to be coming um, from Germany. I mean, it'd be great. It's just that, as you said, Rheinmetall isn't the biggest military corporation in the world. You've got BAE Systems in the UK is a massive uh, player on the market, and they're involved in the US manufacture as well. And yet they seem to be. It was interesting when you heard Rheinmetall saying, "Right, we're going to set up repair shops here, and then we're going to set up in Ukraine." And the BAE Systems a couple of weeks later were like, "Oh, hello, yeah, we're going to do that too." And you know, as we know, this is a business thing as much as it is a moral thing for these companies. But do you know what? If that's aligned with morality and good politics, then that's brilliant. But you can see that there are opportunities for these big concerns to you know, make some money out of this and do business in
Yeah.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see them get involved, and that's I think what Zelensky has to appeal to, which is why he's meeting with all these big military industrial leaders to say, look, invest in Ukraine. We need you.
Yeah, just like you said, and I also said that at the beginning, their financial interests involved. I'm 100% sure. I mean, nobody can tell me that, oh, we just do this of pure generosity, like we want to do that. I mean, of course, they're in favor of Ukraine, but the big truth is arms companies are earning a lot of money from war. It
Yeah.
is like it is, yeah, and of course financial interests are playing a role. And I'm not sure about other companies, but I do see a lot of German companies like helping a lot with Rheinmetall, for example. We know that KMW is working, or KNDS, the main company, is working very closely and more closely. We know, for example, Quantum Systems, which delivers vector drones, for example, on the behalf of the German government. They opened a service center and repair center in Ukraine.
Can you talk about those vector drones? What, because we hear them an awful lot, that there's
They're on the
Quantum
top.
Systems at the top. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
You hear this an awful lot, and what are these drones? These vector drones, that 152 of them here. I mean, that's a lot of those drones. Are they
Yeah.
big old drones?
No, they're very modern drones. Like one of the drones costs in 2022, they cost about 180K per drone.
Right.
So they're very expensive. But yeah, that's them. And they are getting delivered to Ukraine multiple times a month. They are very good surveillance drones. What can I say? For example, the manufacturer Quantum Systems, they developed an AI solution for this in case they're getting jammed, for example, so they don't lose track. So
Right.
they operate themselves basically. And yeah, a lot of companies like Quantum Systems, for example, they put up repair shops in Ukraine to help them. For example, also GCS, which is a Swiss company, they manufacture their demining machines in Germany,
Yes. I
so they can
reported on
export them.
them yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the largest supplier of demining machines to Ukraine in general, and they also set up a service point in Ukraine. And we do see that with a lot of companies in Germany, and I'm sure that's not only Germany. I'm sure that other companies, at least that's what I hope, which are doing the exact
Here
the
it
same
is.
stuff. Yeah,
This is your tweet from yesterday. I used your tweet in my news piece, talking about the uptick in orders for these GCS autonomous, or not remotely controlled, sorry, deminers, going up from 25 to 40 to 70 next year, and that's going to be super useful.
yeah,
Just looking at these vector drones, these are quite cool. Look, because they can rotate their rotors so that they can take off vertically, and then rotate their rotors to then fly horizontally. That's really cool.
yeah,
Obviously pretty simple stuff, but I guess then you've got these hydrants. You know anything about the hydrants? Because I always see those listed and I don't know anything
yeah.
about them.
They are Danish ones. I'm not that familiar with these. I know that Denmark also delivered 25 of them, when I remember right. Germany delivered 100. We have recently lost the first one, confirmed, by the way.
Right.
It's not added yet to the website. And Ukraine also crowdfunded a couple of them, but I don't know how many of them. But yeah, they are basically also UAVs for surveillance, and yeah.
So a lot of, I mean, this is one of the areas where Ukraine appears to be having. Well, I've argued that they've long had the advantage in reconnaissance, even though the Russians have the all-land drones and these cheap, fairly decent ranged drones. Ukraine has some pretty high-tech drones, but also they have satellite systems and the access to the best satellite imagery that the West has to offer, and that has to be worth so much for like hitting time-sensitive targets and whatnot. We also, there is on the list, I've mentioned them once, these Mars 2. There's only 5 of them. These are like HIMARS essentially, but on tracks instead of wheels. Is
Yeah.
there any news about providing any more of those? Because they would be super useful, but I guess it's also about the ammunition too.
Yeah. With ammunition, it's pretty easy. We, in September, for example, Germany pledged 480 M26 rockets. And it's not that kind of cluster ammunition the US uses. we have special rockets or special missiles with anti-tank mines in it.
Right.
And we delivered recently all or a couple of them. They didn't say how much was delivered, but they recently delivered ammunition for these Mars ones. And the Mars basically is HIMARS just on tracks with double the firepower. So HIMARS has 6 missiles, when I remember right, and the Mars has 12. And yeah, so of course, when you see the US delivering a lot of more HIMARS than Germany, but when you add that up with all Western delivers of the M270, which is like the UK, I believe,
Yeah.
delivered 14 or 11 or something like this.
Yeah. Together with Norway, I think
Yeah.
yeah.
And Italy delivered them. France delivered, I believe, 2 LRU. And when you add that up, you're somewhat comparable to the US in terms of multi-rocket launchers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about, just if we stay just for a few minutes on equipment, what about, so Panzerhauser 2000s? These were really highly valued at the beginning of the war. They were ended up, as far as I remember, being fired so much that the barrels couldn't kind of handle it, and a number of them had to be brought back to I think Lithuania might have fixed some
Yes.
of them, and Germany. Goodness me, it's amazing what your brain picks up after 2 years of looking at war closely. Do they have enough of these? They don't seem to have lost any yet. But does Germany have many Panzerhaubitze in their stocks?
We have still a lot of in our stocks. I mean, not enough for our own army.
Right.
And this counts for a lot of systems, right? It counts for Leopard tanks, it counts for Mars, it counts for Panzerhaubitze. The German Bundeswehr is underfunded. Yeah, we don't have enough systems for ourselves, and then we are still giving away systems from our army to Ukraine. That really hurts. But when you're asking about Ukraine, yeah, Ukraine doesn't have lost a single Panzerhaubitze yet. We got one damaged by a drone. I believe it was last year, but I'm not sure if it was last year. But there was no major damage. The big thing is a lot of people always say, yeah, the Panzerhaubitze with the hedgehog armor, which is basically added armor on top of the hull of the Panzerhaubitze. It's very, very good protected, and yeah, it's absolutely true. But I think the way how the howitzer is used in Ukraine doesn't play a role. I mean, you see a lot of you see a lot of destroyed crabs, for example, from Poland, but people always forget that the Panzerhaubitze, for example, is when I'm informed correctly, mainly used for counter battery fire. So basically, you just react and then get cover again. While the Krabs, for example, from Poland, they are mainly getting used for the frontline use. And of course, it's just naturally that the
Yeah.
Polish ones, for example, gets destroyed more often.
Yeah.
And I do think that if we would use the Panzerhaubitze that way, we already have 5, 6, 7 destroyed ones in Ukraine. No way there would be no destroyed system.
So it's
And
not because they're special; it's because of the way that they're being used.
I mean, they are special. Of course, I as a German have to say they're special. But of course, they are special protected, and they are very, very modern and very, very good, which has its ups and downsides. But it's not the only reason. I don't see that Germany will deliver any of these in the future, because we have delivered 2 Susanna 2s right now. You see that there. And we have more of these in the pipeline. So they're getting manufactured,
really?
I believe, in Slovakia, when I remember
Yeah.
right. Last year, we made a contract together with Denmark and Norway, I believe, for the production of 16 of them to Ukraine. So they will get howitzers of them from Germany. And they also get remote controlled howitzers, the RCH 155.
Yes. Which
And they
apparently
get
are going to
15.
come online sooner than was originally thought, I think.
Not anymore.
Oh, really?
It was like a political advisor of, or an advisor of KMW or KNDS said that once, but a couple of weeks, like 1 or 2 months ago, he like withdraw his statement, and
Right.
we saw a Spiegel article in the German news media, and there are some people involved in the whole process basically said the original timeline will be held.
So
So
these are interesting because they can fire whilst moving, and I
yeah.
was just like wondering why you would necessarily need to do that, because surely it'd be much more inaccurate. I can't like just stop for a couple of seconds, but evidently it's a benefit to be able to fire while moving. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not a artillery guy. At my introduction, I said I'm basically just tracking. But the big benefit of it, which I see, is that counter battery fire is almost impossible. Like you
Yeah,
fire and they're
yeah,
still accurate, yeah, and you're just basically on the move. I'm not saying, and it's not like they're driving like 50 kilometers or
yeah,
30 miles per hour while shooting. It's basically they're just rolling, but they are on the move
yeah,
constantly, and
yeah.
that's great.
And it's just brilliant. So what you've just been saying about the Susanna 2, about the RTH 155, is that Germany is still, there are things in the pipeline. So it's not like, and that's it. We've got to fight for more aid. It's like there's aid still coming that is literally being built to order. And there's a number of bits of kit that you've talked about already that are due to be delivered. So already I'm feeling better about Ukraine's future going forward. What's the situation with Leopards? Because you said that Germany, they don't have any left in their stocks, or in their own kind of army stocks. But what about Leopard 1s, and about Switzerland has 100 sitting around doing nothing? Are there still areas that they can get Leopard 1s from?
Um, First, with the Leopard 2, I mean, we still have them in the army, of course. We just
Mhm.
received very, very modern ones, but not enough. And that's the
Yeah,
reason why I
yeah.
think will see in the near future. The only Leopard 2 delivery we will see in the future is from Rheinmetall, actually, because I believe it was 14 Leopard 2A4 from Denmark and Netherlands as a joint procurement, and we will see them in 2024. So that's a great news. But with Leopard 1A5, um, I don't see any chance at all that they will come from Swiss, um, and from other countries as well. Not like we have a lot of them in the pipeline. A total of about 160, 170 Leopard 1A5s will be delivered to Ukraine. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, so which means basically that the Leopard 1A5 is going to be the most widely used Western main battle tank in Ukraine, unless the US follows up with some Abrams. I don't
Well,
think
they could
that's
just go. They could say 160. We'll match that with, I don't know, 300 Abrams, and it still wouldn't really make much difference. I mean,
yeah,
that's the size of their stocks, isn't it?
yeah.
Do you know if the Leopard ones are going with decent fire control systems and optical, thermal imagery that's better than the Russians? Because that's what I always assume and say.
Yeah. So the feedback we have received so far, and we have seen on Telegram and Twitter and all this kind of stuff, is very, very positive. I think more than expected from a lot of people.
Really?
From what I've seen and remember, it's like they have better electronics. They have better range. A couple of days ago, there was a news or a TV report on the Ukrainian media, and the soldier was basically saying, "We can shoot at the Russians at a range where the Russians can shoot at us." And I mean, there's no bigger selling point when you can shoot at the enemy, but the enemy can't shoot at you, right?
And
And
you've got a pretty old Leopard 1A tank, Leopard 105 tank. That's brilliant.
yeah, and I mean they have lacking armor. The armor is very, very thin. We saw it a couple of days or weeks ago with the Leopard tank. I'm not sure if you saw that video footage of them getting disabled by artillery. You saw a couple of artillery shells like exploding in the near to the tank on the field, and the
Right.
tank just stopped working, and the crew had to flee. I mean, they basically said they had recovered the tank and is currently being repaired, which is great news. But you see that with the thin armor. But in the same TV report, the soldier also said that they're currently working on putting reactive armor, like the ERA
Yeah.
plates.
Yeah.
on these tanks. So it will improve. It won't be as good as a Leopard 2 tanks, of course, but it will improve.
That's brilliant. Actually, I love speaking to you because I'm feeling better about things already after a pretty tough week. So as we sort of meander towards the end, what do you think, Germany? And I know you might say Taurus. That would be my prediction. But
Yeah.
what do you think? I guess let's start with the negatives and move on to the positives. What do you think Germany could do better or could do more of, or if you were in charge of Germany, what decisions would you make?
Starting from the negative or the positive?
Yeah. So what as in what more could Germany do that they haven't done? Like, what would you like to see that they haven't done?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I would say Taurus, for example.
Yeah.
Or when I'm honest.
Yeah.
I mean, everything else, we have systems in the pipeline for tanks up to 2024, 2025. Howitzers up to 2024, 2025. Air defense systems 2024, 20. You get where I'm going, right? We have
Yeah,
everything in the
I love this.
pipeline.
This is great. This
Yeah.
is a positive, and this is supposed to be
And
the negative. So yeah.
and the only thing which is really missing is the cruise missile, the Taurus, because it would benefit Ukraine a lot. And even when we just deliver 20 to 50 of them, which is a lot, but still won't hurt us that much. And it would really benefit Ukraine. This would be a huge contribution to the defense fight, and that's honestly the only thing which I see lacking right now, and which I hope that gets better, and hope that Scholz will deliver them to
Yeah.
Ukraine.
And then, so now the positive thing here, which I'm going to channel a bit of Breakfast Club and Anthony Michael Hall, who plays Brain on that, just like. So that's what it does in that. It's just a little film reference. Anyway, what do you think? What are you proud of Germany doing? And this can be both in terms of politics, in terms of anything to do with the war, or in terms of equipment, or just in generally, just Germany. You're awesome. Like, what are you most proud of?
I think the most proud of is that we deliver constantly. We deliver every week, constantly, arms to Ukraine. I think that's something which every German can be proud of when he's when he's in favor of Ukraine aid. I think that a lot of countries are not doing this. We are planning for the future since day one, basically, and I think that's something to be proud of. Yeah.
Excellent. And so, I guess as we bring it towards the end now, is there anything that we haven't talked about, that you haven't said, that you would like to say? Any important news that you are predicting might happen, or any worries you have or hopes you have going forward?
Oh, that's a hard question, actually. Predictions? Not really. I just hope that. I mean, it's. I think that everyone hopes that the war will end soon, but I think that nobody can be sure of that. I think that most of the people know already that the war will continue for the next years, and I just hope that we all together, not only Germany, because Germany is just one country. We need everyone on board. And therefore, I'm, for example, very happy about the political change in Poland. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Poland need to take the lead in Eastern Europe. Yeah, it's very, very vital, and I'm hoping that the US is getting everything on board, and that they are still continuing to deliver, because even when Scholz says that Germany has to do more when others let up, and that goes, for example, in the direction of the US, we can't. I mean, in terms of military aid, no country at all could deliver as much military aid to Ukraine as the US could do or is doing. I mean, even when you just see what the US has right now delivered and see what Germany has pledged and delivered, it still comes nowhere near that. And that's my hopes for the future.
Yeah, because I showed a list of military spending the other day. I'm just trying to find it, and it's just phenomenal how much. I mean, the US traditionally used to spend more than the next however many nations combined. Like literally, you go down a list of like the next, I don't know, 12 nations, the US has spent more than them combined. With China spending more and more, it's a bit more, it's a bit different. But you look at the list and America just spends a phenomenal amount. However, it's also slightly worrying that you've got Russia, India, and China, I think, in like second, third, and fourth position, and they're all part of BRICS. So you're right; it is incumbent upon the rest of the world, as in, you know, the allies of Ukraine, the EU, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, you know, these Japan, South Korea, these nations to kind of step up and work in a united fashion. And you're right with Donald Tusk. I think he's interesting because although Poland was always an ally of Ukraine and a staunch supporter, the previous government, the Justice and Law Party, were very anti-EU. And I think with Donald Tusk being so pro-EU means that they are going to work much better together with the aims of the EU in mind. And I think Poland will end up being an even more valuable partner of Ukraine. I don't know, is that what you see as well?
Yeah, I mean, nobody has to deliver, like everyone could do it like Germany is doing it, right? Most of the stuff we deliver to Ukraine comes from our industry. That's why, for example, also the cooperation between Ukraine and the industry is very, very vital. It's very, very important. I would say about 80% of all military aid comes from our industry. And this could also be the Poland. This could be any country. Don't deliver from your own stocks. I mean, of course, it would be good because deliveries from the own stocks mean the deliveries will be fast, but and quick. But you could just get a couple of billions or hundreds of millions and just throw it at the industry, and they will produce weapons for Ukraine. That's totally fine. I mean, you see it with Germany. We pledge every basically for every 2 months or something like this, we pledge a new package, right? We have pledged, I believe it was 700 million in July, 400 million in September, then 1 billion in October, 1 billion in November. And yeah, this is going up and up, right? And
And you've
everything is.
increased your defense budget next year as well, haven't you?
Yeah, but that's people always get that wrong. That's not the doubling of the general defense budget. That's just the doubling of the Planet 2024 budget. That's a small difference. I mean, it's still an increase of about 3 billion or something like this. But it's not a doubling in particular when you see that from 2023 to 2024. And that was necessary. That was really, really necessary. Because with the 4 billion we have worked with, or we have, how would you say it, planned it with, we would have left, I believe it was something around 200 to 250 million euros for new commitments in 2024 in total.
Yeah.
That's yeah, we all know that's not a lot, right? And so they had to do that, and it's very good that we have achieved that now. I mean, there's still some things to do until it's 100% safe, but the
Yeah,
rest
because
of
there
the
were some
procedure.
worries, weren't there? There were some worries because there had been these legal uh, proclamations in German courts to do with funding to the EU and funding, internal funding. So that was possibly going to cause problems for further funding, defense funding, and help to Ukraine. But I believe that, although it's quite complicated, I believe that's all been sorted out. Is that right?
Yeah. So in terms of Ukraine, nobody has to worry about anything. We had that budget issues in Germany, and we probably still have them until everything is 100% safe. Maybe I just be too German for that to say right now everything is okay. Um, but for example, even before the renegotiations ended, even before that, we made that pledge of a package. What was it? 1.3 billion euros in November when Pistorius visited Ukraine, and even then, we haven't had any time to fix the budget problems. Even then, the Ministry of Defense said the package of 1.3 billion euros is 100% financial secured for Ukraine. no matter
Brilliant.
what's going to end up. And that's what I'm always saying. Like the government parties, they know well that Ukraine has to win the war. I know they don't say it for some reason, I don't know, but they know it, and they're doing everything they can. Like we could do more, of course, but financial aid for Ukraine, or financial security for the military aid for Ukraine, nobody has to worry about that.
Brilliant stuff. Excellent. Well, do you know what? I've really appreciated speaking to you, because actually I feel like more confident in continued support from who is now easily the second biggest contributor to Ukraine, and that's really important. And to see that kind of long-term project taking place is fantastic. In the same way that I keep saying that Norway, for example, is one of the first nations to have given a 5-year plan of support to Ukraine, which is really important messaging to Putin to say, look, this isn't just an ad hoc bit of support. We are going to do this for the long term, which means that if you think we're going to tire, we are contractually obliging ourselves to help Ukraine for 5 years.
Yes.
A number of nations have done that, and the EU has started to look at doing that. And it looks like, although that's not formally the case with Germany, there are things in the pipeline that commit Germany to providing assistance to Ukraine in terms of building equipment, as you say, up into 2025. And that is fantastic news. So I thank you for making me feel better about the whole situation. Look, I really appreciate you coming on, and I would love to speak to you again in the future at some point, maybe get a panel of people to talk about all this kind of stuff. Just look, thank you so much. Hopefully it wasn't too nerve-wracking or anything to be on, and and I appreciate you dropping by.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was very, very easy talking to you, to be honest. Your kind of way you handle the situation, talk to the people, talk to me. I felt very comfortable talking to you. So thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you very much to my guests. Please go and check him out on Twitter. We'll go and find him on Twitter. Here he is, German Aid to Ukraine. Well worth following. Has lots of great stuff on Twitter to look at, and also, of course, his website, which is linked at the top of his Twitter feed, deadua.org /en to have that in English. And you've got we haven't even talked about some of these things at the top here. You got all of the information on German deliveries and pledges, as well as his blog, deadua.org /news, and that's an English blog that goes alongside those German aid packages. So fantastic work that he's doing, and a fantastic set of resources there for all of you to dip into. I'll put the links in the description below. Thank you so much, mate. Appreciate that. Take care. Stay on the line. Take care, and speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Anytime.